Joe, the argument seems to be still being made and debated about whether you have to have a federal crime in order to impeach a president and remove him from office. So have we settled that argument? Are the Democrats managing to settle that or not yet?
Kathy, it's clearly a hook that the president's defense team is looking to grab Republicans with. It's an easy way to dismiss the abuse of power charge without even having to get to the underlying facts, by basically saying, look, this is a defective charge because there's no crime alleged. I think if you want to take an objective, fair, realistic look at 200 years of constitutional interpretation, case law, precedent, and the text of the framers of our Constitution, a fair reading is that you do not need a crime to impeach a president. There are plenty of examples, even seen in the case of Richard Nixon, which obviously did not go to impeachment because he resigned first. But he was charged in part with the kinds of abuse of office that only a president can commit. And while there might not be the text of a specific federal crime, everyone would agree that certain abuses of that office cannot be tolerated and are the basis for legitimate impeachment.
Joe, we're in the middle still of a tussle over witnesses and whether there should be witnesses appearing, with Democrats saying we need some of these witnesses in order to find out firsthand what happened, particularly John Bolton, the former national security advisor, who had direct knowledge of the conversations that the president had with the Ukrainians. But here was President Trump in Davos today throwing cold water on that prospect. Let's have a listen.
The problem with John is that it's a national security problem. You know, you can't have somebody who's at national security. And if you think about it, John, he knows some of my thoughts. He knows what I think about leaders. What happens if he reveals what I think about a certain leader and it's not very positive? He knows other things. And I don't know if we left on the best of terms. I would say probably not.
Is the president there basically throwing cold water on the notion that even if the senators vote to have witnesses and ask for former national security advisor John Bolton, the president's just going to say, well, no, because for national security reasons, I'm not going to let them appear. So what's the point of having the vote?
Kathy, you described this issue as a tussle. I'd say it's a bare-knuckle fight that's going to continue. The issue of witnesses is critical to the Democrats' case here. But you're right. What the president is signaling is, even if 4 Republicans jump ship with the Democrats and say, okay, let's tolerate John Bolton or Mick Mulvaney or one of the other executive branch employees that the Democrats have asked for, the president will assert executive privilege. And so basically, what does that mean? This will go to court, which is exactly why the House Democrats did not do it in the first place, because they did not want to lose months fighting in court. So that's a clear signal that basically this trial would most likely have to stop in its tracks, and there would be a side parallel fight about whether or not it's acceptable to basically insist on the testimony of John Bolton and these others. And so that would delay this. And I think Democrats have to be careful what they wish for. It gives them a moral high ground right now to basically say, look, how can we have a fair trial without witnesses? But if they get those witnesses, that's only the beginning of a separate fight.
Well, quite. I was going to ask you about that, Joe, because we are told the White House is preparing for the possibility that witnesses will be accepted. So what sort of contingencies will they be trying to work on?
Well, I think the Democrats have to be prepared with a plan B, which is basically, okay, if we don't get witnesses, or if it becomes the situation where we get them, but it's going to put such a delay on this process that we lose momentum, can we prove the case without new evidence, and basically with only the evidence that's already on the record, which is basically emails, documents, text messages, and the transcripts from all the witnesses that already testified, either in closed door or public testimony before the House in the last few months during the impeachment investigation. Democrats have said, look, it's a solid case, even without new witnesses. The question will be, if it comes down to having to put on that case without John Bolton, without Mick Mulvaney, can they prove their case without it? Democrats should have that backup plan ready to say, okay, you know what? Even without witnesses, we're ready to go.
Okay. Joe Moreno, thank you very much for joining us.